This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. My special guest, Eli Delaney of ElyDelaney.com, relationship marketing guru. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing awesome, David. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I think this is such an important topic. Let me start out with an anecdote from 7 or 8 years ago. I had a client who said, I hired this social media agency and they're blogging and they're tweeting and they're on LinkedIn for me and they're on Facebook and we're posting all over the place. And whether they did that right or wrong or who knows. But his next question is the one that floored me. We're doing all this social media. I'm not seeing any sales. And to me, that is like saying, okay, I've put gas in the car. The car's in the driveway. When are we going to get there? It's like necessary, but not sufficient. Necessary, but not sufficient. So it's great that your car has gas, but you didn't get in the car. You didn't turn the engine. You didn't leave your driveway. And they're expecting a sales result from a social media effort. And that's not really how it works. So let's unpack that for a minute. Yeah. Social media, when people come to you, Eli, and they say, hey, we've been doing X, Y, and Z. We really want to ultimately get more sales. What kind of crazy mixed up expectations do they have, similar to my story, or anything that you've seen with your client base?
Well, first off, I think that's an awesome story because it really does lay the groundwork. And I find so many people that are spending hours or, a lot of money, whether it be time, effort, or money, the three main things that we have. They're spending all this on their social media. They're spending all this on getting on stages and traveling across the country and being on podcasts and all these different things, but they don't have any behind the scenes stuff. And I think the best analogy, and I've taken this to a step further, was a friend of mine by the name of Angel Tussey. And she talks all the time about you do all these other outreach things in order to get them in the castle. And we use that terminology as in you want to get them from wherever they are, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, speaking on other people's stages, doesn't matter where they're coming from, but you get in front of those people and you get them from wherever they are into your world, into your castle. And the problem is that we go through all that effort, and so many times I found people who they get them in the castle and the first thing they meet is the village idiot. And there's not really much there, and you've seen that. I'm sure you've been there before, where I'll use speaking as an example because it's such a prominent thing. And I know a lot of your audience are speakers where they'll do a text opt-in or an opt-in page or something to that effect from stage. But then literally what happens is they say, okay, put this name or this word to this number, yada, yada, yada. And they go, okay, cool. They've done that. Thank you so much. Here's your download. And then crickets and nothing else. And what's happening is if they don't make an immediate connection with somebody who says, I love what you have and I'm ready to give you my credit card right now, nothing happens because there is no behind the scenes. And we know that the fortune is in the follow-up. Everybody's heard that phrase if they've been in business for any amount of time at all. But a lot of times we don't really realize how true and how powerful that really is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. Tell us a little bit about follow-up gone wrong, where you feel like you're being stalked, and follow-up done right, which is about offering value and deepening the relationship. Because one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later, I know that you're also very much into relationship marketing and helping people and being of service.
Definitely.
That's the smart way to do it, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But follow-up means, okay, we're going to pound them with sales messages the second they opt in. Or we're going to totally not do anything and miss the complete opportunity. That obviously is two extremes that are both wrong. What follow-up craziness have you seen? Follow-up gone wrong? And then what, in your opinion, is follow-up gone right?
So craziness, great examples of that COVID-19 going on. That particular situation, I have heard from so many companies who care about my safety that I don't even remember who they are, what I got from them, did I buy from them? I mean, it's been the worst thing. And I'll tell you a great example of this. My car dealership, we get this email. We don't get emails very often, but we get them, every once in a while. And usually they're a sales pitch of some sort, of some promo they have going on. But this one comes to me and it starts off with we know that there's things are really scary right now. And this is what we're doing in the shop itself, especially if you're going to come in for any kind of services. We're making sure everything's clean and yada, yada, yada. And they go through all that and all great. But then about 2 paragraphs in, they're like, oh, and by the way, we want to do a special thing for you. So if you want to come in and get a new car, it's going to be no payments for 120 days. Now, granted, I appreciate that, but they immediately turned in, we care about you too. You should buy more of our stuff. And immediately it changes the tone. And to me, that's not the way you want to go about it. I definitely am in business. I love being in business and I love to make sales. I want to do that. I am a capitalist, but at the same time, you don't have to shove it down people's throats. And so that's a great example of something completely wrong, because I've seen a lot of those going on where it's just they start with something that might be a good idea and we really care about you, but immediately go into the pitch. And I think that's a good way to ruin a relationship. The second thing that I see going on, which is another big one, is if somebody buys your product, don't try to sell them that product again. I find this really is very entertaining, especially in the coaching world where we have different products and courses and things like that, where people have come and that you buy something and then the next week you find out they promote it to you again because they didn't segment their list down. They didn't pay attention to who actually bought and who was interested. And you've got to talk to those people differently. And so that's another big one with that. The next thing I would say going in the opposite is looking at what is one of the best ways that you can follow up and stay in touch. And a great way to do this is by doing what you said, which is building the relationship. First and foremost, your prospects and your clients, the people that you meet, make sure that they know who you are and what you do, but always look at what can you do to add value. One of my favorite things to do, and everybody listening can do this right now, go think of one of the books. Here's a great example. If you're listening to this, if you haven't, go read David's book. It's an easy read. And then you turn around and you write 3 sentences as to why you think it's so awesome. And you share that with your prospects and your clients. Send them an email and says, hey, I had this book that I read. I thought it was really awesome. This is why I love it. Here's a link. Check it out and let me know what you think. That's it. That's the entire message. Because you notice there's no pitch in there, but you gave value and you stayed in front of them at the same time.
You know what every marketer wants to do with that email, right? They
try to promote
Eli,
their own
sounds
book.
Great. What do you put in the PS? What do you put in the PS? PS, we have a special on donuts today.
No. Yeah, I will actually say that the PS is a great place to say, reply back and let me know what you thought of it.
Human to human interaction.
Exactly. Now, I'm a big automation guy. I love my tools and technology that takes care of a lot of this stuff for me. I'm a big believer in evergreen and build it once, let it run for years. But in that process, that doesn't mean you get rid of the human touch. You always have to have that human touch. You always have to come with a conversation, because we know that you're using an email service of some sort. We're not hiding that. But if I get an email that has your header across the top and it just screams, buy me, buy me, buy me, I'm going to ignore it most of the time. But if I get an email that says, hey, Eli, I had this thing I found out that I thought you might be interested in. Here's a great book. Here's why I like it so much. Here's a link. Let me know what you think. All of a sudden, I'm going to stop. I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to open it. And chances are I'm going to go read it. And then I'm very likely to reply back. And now we've started an actual dialogue, a real conversation. And that's where the excitement goes.
So you bring up a very interesting point about the branded versus unbranded email that people might send out through, Infusionsoft, Constant Contact, MailChimp, whatever they use. The standard, here's my logo, here's the big headline, it always looks the same, as opposed to not intending to, quote unquote, fool people, but just to make it a little bit less threatening. Unpackage the email,
Agreed.
Make it just to take off the logo. Right? When your best friend emails you, there's no logo. When your mom emails you, it's not the logo up at the top says mom. There's no logo on mom's email. Just a plain old text email. It's going to have the unsubscribe at the bottom. It's going to have your physical mailing address because all that can't spam stuff. So people aren't dumb. They know what's going on, but it just feels more personal, right?
Yeah. I actually had a client who we just went through this with, and she had done all the big branding and everything on her emails. And they were like in a very small box and all that kind of stuff. So it had a pretty background and all these things. And that was the first thing that I did with her is like, you got to get rid of that because that feels like a newsletter. It feels like it came from a blast service. Now, we're not hiding anything. We're not lying in any way, shape, or form, but we want to remove those things that scream, I sent this to 10,000 people as much as possible. And if you stop and think about it, if you just picked up the email and, if you just opened up your email and sent it to me today, you'd open up Gmail, you just type something, send it over to me, and it would look like just a plain text. It wouldn't have all that fancy stuff in there. That's what we're going for. That's the look and the feel we want, because what ends up happening is if I get an email like that, I am much more likely to stop and look at it because I felt like you sent it to me personally. Now, at the end of the day, I probably know better. You're not hiding it. But here's the fun thing is when we did this with this gal, just recently it went through and it was so funny because her first email was literally, one other suggestion that I have is just every once in a while, send out a message that is nothing more than, hey, I just want to check in with you, see how you're doing. What are you up to? And is there anything I can do to help? Just like that, nothing else. And she sent out this email and she got the biggest response ever to that one email, just from one little change. And it was the most amazing thing. She was flipping out by the responses and the conversation she had. And she was like, this is so amazing because she comes from her heart. She wants to have those conversations, but she wasn't sure how to start it. And she doesn't have time to pick up the phone and call every single one of those people. Right. You can still use the tools to streamline it, but you give it the feel of that personal, and that will start the conversations for the real dialogue.
Absolutely. It's so funny. Just this week, I sent out a plain text email, just like you said, unbranded, no logo, no nothing. I think we've done this also as the recipient of this. People say, oh, hey, David, thanks for thinking of me. They were responding as if it was a personal email. Yeah. I felt a little bit guilty, but then I'm remembering all the times, because I'm on a lot of lists, you're on a lot of lists, and so we receive good, bad, and ugly.
Right.
And I'm friends with some of the people that I subscribe to. So I have had the experience, and Eli, maybe you have too. You get an email, you think it's personal, and you type back. Yeah. And you're like, hey, Jim, so great to hear from you. Congrats on the book launch, and, hope it goes awesome. And, let me know if I can help. And then what Jim will reply is, oh, David, that was an email blast, dude. And I was like, really? And I go back and I look, and lo and behold, there's the little unsubscribe. And, they don't hide it, but it just felt personal. Yeah. I don't want to say I fell for it because then it feels like we're tricking people. But like you said, we know better, but it still feels more personal.
Yeah. And the fun thing about this is I have people who've gone through my programs and then they've gotten an email from me, and it's hilarious. When I did a full day workshop one time and it was teaching a lot of this stuff. And then somebody came back to me like the next week, they got an email from me. He's like, okay, I got this email. It's really cool stuff, but I want to just check in because I know I just took this class and you taught me all this stuff. But did you just send this to me, or was this one of your automated things? Because it really actually felt like it was just to me. And my response was, of course it was to you and 10,000 other people, and I'm joking with him about it, but he still loved it. And here's the thing. And to bring up a point of your one to respond, I actually did the book thing that I was talking about. And I did that. One of the books that I love recommending is The Greatest Salesman in the World, Og Mandino, which you have, if people haven't read that, you definitely need to. It's an easy read and read it in a couple hours. And I put that in my system as one of my emails went out. And I got a reply back from a person who I'd known for a very long time. Like we're talking almost 2 decades, honestly. And she said, thank you so much for sending me this. I've really been having a hard time in my business lately. And I was actually about ready to shut the doors. And then I got this, I picked up the book and I read it this weekend. And I feel so much better now. You've completely changed my whole outtake on this. And did I automate it? Yes. Did I actually write that email that day? No. I wrote it 2 years earlier, but she happened to get it at that time because that's where she was in my sequence. But does any of that matter? No, because what matters is it did make an impact. It did change her life. And she got what she needed to make her life better, to move forward and do what she needed right then and there. And then she replied back and it started a dialogue with me. So now we have a real conversation going.
Super quick commercial break. Isn't this interview amazing? If you'd like to get more ideas on how to start or grow your speaking business fast, pop over to our free training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. Well, that brings us to another one of your areas of expertise, and I'm guessing favorite topics, which is networking.
Yes.
Now, when you say to a group of entrepreneurs, especially consultants and speakers and people who are a little bit me-centric, sorry, folks, you know who you are, a little me-centric, they go, oh, Eli, I hate networking. I don't want to go to networking meetings. I don't want to go to networking groups. I don't want to go to networking websites. I just don't like networking because their experience of networking is bad networking.
Right.
Where the insurance guy and the gift basket lady, they go around, they shove cards in people's hands, and it's just a meaningless pitch fest where everyone's trying to sell to everyone else. Talk about how you reframe that entire concept of networking and what we need to really think about to do it the right way.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things with it. I totally resonate with that idea. I've been there. I've done those events where you go to the same meeting, talking to the same people, sitting at the same table, having the same rubber chicken month after month after month. That's not the right way to do it. And we're talking whether it be face-to-face or in an online world. Networking is networking. What you're doing is you're just connecting with other people and being of service. And that's a really big one. When I walk in the room, no matter where I'm at, I am all about who's the cool people in this room that I can meet. That's what it's about. I want to meet 2 or 3 people. It doesn't matter how big the room is. If I can meet 2 or 3 people that are cool, that are making a difference in the world, I want to get to know them. And a lot of times what I'll actually do is I'll actually even do some research ahead of time and see if I can figure out who is going to be in that room in order to have that conversation. But most importantly, it's not about the pitch. You can't be there to sell your stuff right out of the gate because you don't like it when that happens to you. So what makes you think that somebody else wants that? I actually was in an event one time where literally as the guy was leaving, he comes up behind one of my friends. He and I are having a face-to-face conversation. And the guy walks up behind me because I'm taking off, but I didn't want to miss you guys. So here's my business card. And he slips his hand over my friend's shoulder, puts his business card in his chest pocket. Like, wow. Very creepy, and then just toodles off. And I'm like, that was scary right there. And, for me, I walk into a room and I'm like, okay, who can we talk to? And the biggest question in the world, you want to make a difference? Ask people, how can I help you? That one question alone. And then most importantly, follow up afterwards. You've got to have a system in place to do that because the sales are not going to happen right there. In 25 years of business, I have gotten a sale on the spot twice. And I'm still not exactly sure how I did it either time. But I have made hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years just from the follow-up after the fact.
Some people say networking does not happen at networking meetings. Mm-hmm. I think what they mean, I'd love your take on this, is the networking meeting is the initial exchange, the initial meeting. Mm-hmm. But then to deepen that relationship, back in the world where we used to have breakfasts, lunches, and coffees, you would have breakfast. You would have a virtual Zoom chat. You would have, hey, let's get to know each other. How can I help you? How can I promote what you're doing? How can I get behind some of your programs, et cetera? And then vice versa. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about that whole networking doesn't happen at networking meetings. And how do we have meaningful one-on-one networking follow-up?
Yeah. So my favorite thing to do is if I meet somebody at an event, and again, like right now, we're meeting more people in the online world, but even, you and I are both speakers. So we meet people mostly at events that we're speaking at. So I'll meet people. First thing that I do is I want to sit in the audience. I want to hang out with them. I want to get to know them a little bit. But when I find somebody that I think is worth having a good conversation with, the very first thing I do is I have them pull out their phone and I give them the link to my calendar and book a call for the next week. And what we'll do is we have a Zoom link. I actually did that at an event in Miami. And while I was there, I was at a random event. There was about 100, 150 people there maybe. And in a 2-hour period, I had 15 people book on my calendar for the following week. I'm like, hey, it's really loud in here. We're not going to get to have some really good conversation right now. And, we got other people to meet as well. Let's just actually plan on a call next week after I get back in town. So pull out your phone and let's just do this right here. And I booked 15 calls literally right then and there. And then the next week, that gives me time to research them. I can find out more about them, check out their social media. What are they into? What kind of things are they working on? What projects? What's their website look like? All the different stuff that I would like to know in order to have a really good conversation to figure out how can I help the most. And then when we get on the call, I definitely recommend using Zoom whenever possible because face-to-face is always the best. And, when you can see the look on somebody's eyes, you can see them smile when you crack a joke, that kind of stuff, it does make a difference. And so when you do that, now that takes the pressure off. It makes it much easier. And again, that phone call or that Zoom call, make it about getting to know them. How can you help them? Because if the conversation comes up and they need what you have, they will ask. Really, it does come into that. It's not about the sale. It's about how can you help them. And when you start telling them a little bit about what you do, just because it's the conversation piece, if they're interested, they're going to be like, ooh, tell me more about that. And now that opens up the doors to have that sales conversation.
Talk a little bit, because you've got some books and courses and programs, and I'd love to hear about how those came about, just from a kind of developing your own thought leadership story. You've got the marketing tidbits book, the networking tidbits book, and then the full-blown course about how to become a networking rock star to grow your business. How did you know that you wanted to get into that sort of thing? And how did those assets come about? The books, the courses, and so on.
The very first thing is the first book, especially Marketing Tidbits. My partner and I wrote that together. And when we did that, it was after, my previous company was a web and graphic design agency. And that's how I grew that business from myself working out of my dining room to just in a couple of years opening up an office. I had 5 employees and we were closing 3 to 5 contracts a week just in our local area. Like 95% of our clients were within a 20-mile radius of us. And so that's, how we grew that business. That's where that book came from. And then over the years, I realized I was such a networker that I wanted to give people the tips and tricks, because I did so much networking that I realized here's all the things that I cannot stand that people are doing. And here's what's worked for me and got me all these clients, because I grew that web design agency from networking. I didn't do any advertising at all for it. And so it kind of led to bits and pieces, and that's where the books came from. And then several years later, I decided that it was time to take all of my knowledge from networking, put it into a course. Very happy. It's How to Network Like a Rock Star. And what it ends up doing is if you do it right, you become the most popular person in the room. And literally you can stand in a corner and not have to actually really do anything. People will just come up to you because you have the reputation. And that's a really nice place to be. I actually have an event that I went to that has, last time I went to it had about 650 people. And I was there for 4 hours and never even walked in the door. I was networking with so many people before I never got a chance to go through the threshold. And so that's where that course came in. I'm very, very proud of how it came about. I think we're over 1,350 students registered right now, which is kind of fun, all over the globe, which is pretty cool.
It's the 6 degrees of Eli Delaney.
Yeah.
Not 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of Eli Delaney. I'll tell you just a quick personal story about that. I went to an event in New York City, I think it was 2014. And, when you walk in, it was Behance, the big design agency, design portal where designers post their portfolios and so forth. And I'm not from that world. So I don't know a famous designer from a non-famous designer.
Right.
So I strike up this conversation with this woman, and she's by herself, totally by herself. And, I see her name badge and Wendy, David, start talking to her. Eli, I tell you, within 10 seconds of me starting to talk to this woman, people are coming by. It's like I'm talking to one of the Kardashians.
Yep.
It's like, oh my God, look, Wendy, is it really you? Oh my God, I follow your blog. You're totally amazing. I get your stuff. I get you. And I'm like, okay, first one, fine. I'm like, who is this person? Second one, third one, 2 at a time now, 3 at a time. Pretty soon she's surrounded She apologizes to me. She says, David, I'm so sorry. I ordinarily, but these are my friends, et cetera, et cetera. Can we catch up a little bit later on after the break and whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like a total piece of chopped liver. But this woman, talk about networking ROI.
Yeah.
And she had provided so much value, so much content, so much relationship. These people had never, ever met her, but they treat her on first meeting like their best friend.
And that's what you want. When you can build a relationship like that with your audience, it doesn't matter what kind of audience, whether it be blogging or your podcast or your email list, it doesn't matter where they come from. But when you have that feeling, when people get to know, they feel like they know you, they feel like you actually care about them, and you give them that relationship of you are a friend. And I treat everybody that I meet that way. I treat people that way on purpose because I want them to feel that way. I want them to feel like I care about them because honestly, I do. And when you can do that, it totally shifts the attitudes, because what ends up happening in the long run, you build a long-term relationship with people. We're not talking fly by night. You're not talking about making the sale today. It's like when the sale happens, it happens. When I do business with people, I say, I am here to add value. This is what it's about. If you buy today, awesome. If it's next week, that's cool. If it's next month, next year, the next decade, I don't care, as long as I'm providing the value to you to help solve a problem that you have. That is my goal. And when it happens, it happens. I'm cool otherwise. And that shakes the pressure off. And the fun thing about it is it also makes people feel that you're much more approachable. And if you want to do more sales in your business, be approachable. Make people feel like they can come up and talk to you and they can ask you questions, because then you not just become the authority, you become the trusted expert in what you do.
Huge difference. Hey, this interview is a real moneymaker. If you're serious about ramping up your reach and revenue as a speaker, trainer, or expert, book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team. The link is doitmarketing.com/call. It will be the most valuable 45 minutes you invest in your speaking-driven business. Speaking of value, let's get back to the show. Let's talk about another relationship building yet automation strategy. When people go to your website, and everyone needs to go to Eli's website, go there right now, unless you're in the car, in which case don't, ElyDelaney.com. You have a little chat bot, chat widget that just sits there, unobtrusive, might not even notice it because it doesn't pop up, it doesn't sing, it doesn't dance, it just sits there. And you go, oh, it's one of these. And then you click on it. And then, true to your brand, true to what you were just saying, what are the first 3 words? Start a conversation. Start a conversation. Tell us about these chat bots or messenger bots, if we're talking Facebook. I have seen these grossly misused, horrendous. I mean, you feel like you're walking into a used car dealership, and then you see it used with restraint and integrity and professionalism and approachability, which is the way you use it. What's the difference, and what do you see as the role of these chatbots and messenger bots just as a technology for building relationship?
Yeah. So, and I agree with you 100% in the fact that they've been grossly abused in so many different ways. And one of the things that I have found, I come from that piece of how can I help you? And when people meet me, that's where they hear is, how can I help you? Because that's me. That's my personality. And so starting that conversation would be, how can I help you? What do you need? And so don't abuse it. Automation is an amazing tool, but think through a conversation. And like these kind of things, I don't use a lot of bots. I actually don't. My automation mostly is in email because it's an easier technology for doing it properly. Key point being properly. But if you're going to set them up, make it simple. I do have, one of those things. If somebody wants to get to know me, I actually have a keyword where somebody can type in connect to a number and it'll just say, okay, let's connect. Here's a link to my calendar. Let's book a call. And it's that simple. That's it. That's the entire automation. Now, texting is another one. People tend to go with texting because you get such a bigger open rate. The problem is that if we abuse it as marketers, like we do everything else, it will eventually lose it. And I'm already seeing that. I'm getting texts from people that I ignore because they're using the tool. So I use a very simple process of, if I send somebody an email, I might have an automated text that goes out that says, hey, I just sent you an email. Go check it out and let me know if you got it. That's it. Don't take the entire copy of the email and put it in a text.
Right.
I hate that. That drives me nuts.
Right.
And most people are not going to read them. They're not going to pay attention. They're going to see it's an obvious promotion and they're going to ignore it. That's the key with it. Now, the big thing with this is not so much how you have to use all the different toys that are out there. I don't do a lot of texting. I don't do a lot of bot stuff. Mostly my stuff is in email, but I do have campaigns. Like I have a campaign that literally runs for 3 years. My running joke is I could go outside today, get hit by a bus. I'm still going to sell you stuff 3 more years from now. Now it's done strategically. I'm not selling everything every time. It's conversation, it's tips, it's tricks, it's resources, it's checking in with people. Now the system just runs automatically. I don't touch it. But then when somebody replies, every one of those comes back to me, and I do personally reply to those. And that starts a real conversation. And many, many times that has opened up a conversation, which led to a Zoom call, which led to a sale. Just because I responded having a conversation to something that I just shared, just as hey, here's an idea. Let me know what you think.
Exactly. Well, tell us a little bit about Meet Cool People. Got to talk about that.
So it's something that I've done for most of my career, and I didn't actually realize what it was until this last year, which was I have a thing where I like to collect people, just not in a Dexter kind of way. And of course, I always have to see if I say that live in front of an audience, you can always see who the Dexter fans are because they laugh and the other people have that blank stare on their face. If you haven't, go to Netflix, you can watch it. I get connected to as many people as I can. I really look for the people that are making a big change and that are doing cool things and that they're honestly there to help other people. And what's happened with it is that it's become kind of a movement for me where I make a point to find specific types of people that I can connect with and share them with the world, because the world needs to know who those cool people are. When I speak, one of the things I've actually become quite known for is I might be at an event, and a lot of times you'll see, speakers will go hide in a corner somewhere, or, they'll stick in the green room or whatever. I'm not that person. I'm the one that's going to be right there. And when they say, okay, we're done for the day, see you back tomorrow, I'm going out and I'm reaching out. It's like, hey, let's go grab dinner, and I'll get 10 or 15 people and we'll go get dinner. And we get to hang out and get to know each other. And it's become a thing. And I do it anywhere that I go. If I'm at an event, that's the first thing that I do. It's one of the things that's driving me nuts right now. I want to get back on the road so I can do that, meet people, have fun dinners, because you can't get to know somebody until you really have that relationship outside of the business world. And now it's come into another thing. We even have events, a virtual event that we're doing every Wednesday and having a blast with it. We're having some amazing people showing up.
Oh, very fun. Now, let's talk about that, because I want to dig into that for a little bit here as we're wrapping it up. Dinner with 10, 12, 15 people, interactive, conversational. How do you get away from, I'm stuck here in the middle of the table, talking to the person to my left, talking to the person to my right, talking to the person across from me? Is it structured? Is there like a mixer type cocktail hour? How do you get people sitting at a table to connect with more than just 2 or 3 people in their immediate vicinity?
I have found we still keep it to a semi-small group. So we're talking 10 to 15 max. With that, we tend to do pretty well with people actually bouncing around and doing it on their own. I don't have to really facilitate it too much. Now, my virtual event, we actually do have a round robin kind of format that we work with, because there's a little bit more structure that needs to happen with it. But I found that I don't have to move around too much. And a lot of times, if I've had dinner with that person before, they're cool with sitting at the other end of the table so somebody else can sit next to me this time. It's just, I'm very blessed in the fact that I meet some people that they get it. And so they're conscious of those kind of things as well.
So people just naturally gravitate to whomever, and there's enough flexibility where you don't need to facilitate or orchestrate a whole lot of like activities or games or icebreakers.
No. It's purely we're getting together and breaking bread. That's the whole premise of it. We get to know each other. And even if you show up and you only talk to 2 people, if you spent all night talking to 2 people, hopefully they were interesting enough to keep wanting to talk to those 2 people.
Exactly.
And so far, I've never had a problem with it.
Right. I love it. Well, Eli, I've got two final questions for you. The final question is, how do people get connected and stay connected to more Eli Delaney genius? And we can set up all kinds of links and resources and all kinds of goodies that'll be under this episode at thespeakingshow.com. So we'll hot link all of your resources and so on. Before that, though, second to last question, if people were to take one central idea from our conversation today about relationship marketing, networking, being approachable, being a good friend before you're worried about being a good salesperson, what do you hope that one central relationship marketing concept would be?
I like to share the story of the farmer and the hunter. The hunter is the sales guy, the guy that's pretty much, if you're out hunting, that means that you eat what you kill kind of situation. That's the mindset behind it. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's short term. You need to think like a farmer. And the farmer is planting the seeds and planning and knowing that if they do the work right now, that harvest will come to them year after year after year, season after season after season. And it's a combination of both. It's not a one side or the other. Although you have to be out there speaking and you have to be doing your Facebook ads and you have to be doing the networking or whatever it is you are using to grow your business, you have to also think long-term, planting the seeds, putting the systems in place to follow up forever, quite honestly. I mean, like I said, I have a system that runs for 3 years. And I've had people that literally have come back to me 10 years after I knew them and become clients. So if you do it right, when they are ready to buy, they will come to you purely because they know you are the right resource and that you actually care about them.
And it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Marathon, not a sprint. All right. Eli Delaney, how do people get connected and stay connected to more brilliance from you?
So actually the easiest way, I have kind of a hub site. That's not even my main website, but you can find my main website from it. If you go to Connect with Eli, and by the way, it is ELY. That's a very important distinction because most people spell it ELI. So connectwitheli.com. That actually has a link to all of my other websites. It has a link to all of my social medias. And even honestly, if you felt like this was a fun conversation and you would love to chat, I would love to have a conversation with you. There is a spot you can book a call to talk to me. It's purely a chat. It's not a pitch. If the conversation leads that way, we'll talk about it, but that's not what it's about. I love meeting cool people, and that's what it's all about. So if you want to talk to me, book a call on my calendar. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Hashtag meet cool people.
Hashtag meet cool people. That's the way.
Well, Eli Delaney, thank you for being a cool person. And thank you for being a fantastic guest. We have to have you back, and we will have you back. Keep doing the fantastic work that you're doing, and we will talk soon.
Thanks so much, David. It's an honor and a pleasure, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.